Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Every Person Has a Name. My name is Jason Moss, and I am the Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of the Greater San Gabriel and Pomona Valley. We are honored to once again have the City of Pasadena as a co-sponsor of this event. Together, we are providing our entire community an opportunity to remember and honor those who were murdered during the Holocaust. Thank you to Mayor Gordo and the City of Pasadena for continuing to co-sponsor this important community event. Mayor Gordo, I'm not sure if you remember, but in 2020, before you were mayor, you signed up to read names on Sunday morning that year. And as you were leaving, you and I had a brief conversation where I thanked you for being here with us and for volunteering. And I also shared with you that the City of Pasadena had co-sponsored the event the year before, and that year as well. And I still to this day remember your words, and you said, as they should. This is something I have not forgotten and appreciate you continuing that partnership. As we have witnessed, hatred of all kind, especially anti-Semitism, has significantly increased over the last several years. Locally, in our community, we've seen the anti-Semitism in the form of a series of anti-Jewish flyers this past year, randomly strewn on driveways, blaming and attacking Jews for everything from COVID, immigration policies, and many other issues our society continues to face. This rise of anti-Semitic rhetoric is truly unprecedented. This past November, FBI Director Christopher Wray shared the following. A full 63% of religious hate crimes are motivated by anti-Semitism, targeting a group of people that makes up just 2.4% of the US population. Earlier this week, the Anti-Defamation League reported the results from a survey that they just conducted and found that 85% of Americans believe in at least one anti-Jewish trope, including such beliefs as Jews are more loyal to Israel than America, Jews have too much power in the business world, and Jews do not share their values. And as Holocaust denial continues to persist in social media, the January 6th committee reported that during their investigation, they found that new TikTok users, without seeking it out, see Nazi content after 75 minutes on this popular site. It is for these reasons and many others that we have continued to hold this event, to serve both as a reminder of what can happen when hate goes unchecked, but also to remember that people were murdered during the Holocaust because of similar hatred, the hatred of the other. We often get caught up in the number 6 million and forget that the figure is made up of 6 million individual people, each with their own story in life. They were daughters and sons, mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles, grandmothers and grandfathers, coworkers, neighbors, and friends. By reading their names out loud, we remind the world that each was a living, breathing person whose life was brutally cut short for one simple reason. They were Jews. The murder of 1/3 of the Jewish people, along with countless members of other minorities, will forever be a warning to all people of the dangers of hatred, bigotry, racism, and prejudice. With this event, not only are we standing up and collectively saying that we remember, but that there is no place for hate in our community or anywhere in society. Tonight, I also want us to take a moment to honor and recognize our community's Holocaust survivors. They lived through the horrors and atrocities of the Holocaust and continue to serve as an ever-present reminder for all of us. We honor, recognize, and pay tribute to you. Sadly, with each passing day, our world loses more and more survivors, and with them, their firsthand eyewitness testimonies. Thankfully, organizations like Holocaust Museum LA, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, Anne Frank LA, United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, Yad Vashem, the Shoah Foundation are dedicated to ensuring that future generations never forget. And lastly, to all of you and to the volunteers who will be with us reading the names. There'll be close to 150 volunteers reading names over the course of the next 24 hours. Together, we are keeping the memory alive of the 6 million lives lost during the Holocaust and reminding all of us what can happen if hate goes unchecked. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Pasadena's Mayor, Victor Gordo.
Thank you, Jason. You know, that Sunday morning was a very early part of the morning, and I chose that early part of the morning for a reason. I think there's a certain dignity, respect, and very somber part of the day as you see the sun rising and you're reading the names. It's an opportunity for reflection. You know, I like to begin by welcoming some of my colleagues here, beginning with PCC Board of Trustees, Tammy Silver. Our own city manager, Miguel Marquez. And of course, our president at PCC, my president at PCC, my alma mater, President Andrew Jonas, who does a fabulous job of leading our city college. For me, it's an honor and a privilege to serve as mayor of Pasadena. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you to, again, say to the rest of the world, Pasadena has never and will never forget. You know, the hate crimes, if we're not vigilant, seem to surface over and over. And we see it. Some are terrible because they involve physical violence. Some are terrible because they involve derogatory looks, derogatory words, but all are heinous because they involve hate. And so as I stand here today and reflect on the rabbi's words that, you know, the dehumanizing, attempted dehumanizing of people who suffered in the Holocaust, I am reminded that we have a responsibility not just to say we've never forgotten, that we'll always remember, but to recall the names of the individuals and to say them out loud. And that's what this event is about. And so I welcome all of you to volunteer and give a few minutes, particularly in the cold part of the night and the cold part of the morning, when you have that opportunity to reflect and read the names of individuals who will never be forgotten by the city of Pasadena and the residents, every resident of Pasadena. So I thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I thank our elected officials who you'll hear from today. And I thank our appointed and elected officials who are here with us today.
In your program, the next speaker was supposed to be a representative from the Israeli consulate. Unfortunately, she fell ill, but she'll be reading names tomorrow at 5 p.m. Her name is Carmel Halevi. She is the consul for public diplomacy, and we thank her for standing with us by reading names. And now I'd like to introduce Sylvia Moskowitz, Western Regional Director of American Society for Yad Vashem, to say a few words.
Thank you, Jason. It's such an honor to be with you on this important evening representing the American Society for Yad Vashem and its 40-year relationship as the primary American supporter of Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center. I bring greetings from both the staff and board here in the United States, as well as from the leadership and staff at the Mount of Remembrance in Jerusalem. ADL reported the highest level of anti-Semitic events since it began keeping these statistics in 1979. And the startling reality is that acts of anti-Semitism that might have once been dismissed as random outbursts from disturbed or hateful individuals no longer feel disconnected from the broader culture. It's something Jewish people are grappling with individually and as a community. Yad Vashem was established in 1953 by the government of Israel. From its inception, one of its fundamental goals has been the gathering of the names of each and every victim of the Holocaust. It lies at the core of the name of the institution, taken from the biblical verse in Isaiah chapter 56, verse 5. And to them I will give a house, and within my walls a memorial and a name, a Yad Vashem, that shall not be cut off. That is what you are doing tonight. Over these 70 years, Yad Vashem, through its work in commemoration, documentation, education, and research, has remained true to its mandate. It is the largest repository of Holocaust-related information in the world, and millions of visitors, both in person and online, benefit from its vast collection of artifacts contained within its museums and exhibitions. One example is the Eichmann trial exhibit, which is on display at this event. And it is only one example of materials available to all community organizations and schools from the American Society of Yad Vashem. It is particularly fitting to tonight's event. Prosecuting Attorney General Gideon Hausner said in his opening statement at the Eichmann trial, "When I stand before you here, judges of Israel, to lead the prosecution of Adolf Eichmann, I am not standing alone. With me are 6 million accusers. Their blood cries out, but their voice is not heard. Therefore, I will be their spokesman, and in their name, I will unfold this terrible indictment." As I conclude, I want to mention one other project of Yad Vashem that is so important to tonight's commemoration. On January 27th, a new updated version of the memorial installation, The Book of Names, will be inaugurated at the United Nations headquarters in New York City in observance of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The project began in 2013 with 4,300,000 names. The new version has added an additional 500,000 names of Shoah victims, and where known, their birth dates, hometowns, and places of death. This information is available to the public worldwide through the central database of Shoah victims' names. Yad Vashem will continue to add names to this list until the victims are identified, all of them. The names being honored this evening came from that list. Yad Vashem Chairman Donnie Dayan said, "The Book of Names serves as a living memorial to the millions of Holocaust victims and provides the public with the ability to physically touch and connect with their identities and the memory the Nazis tried to eradicate. Each victim of the Holocaust calls out to us to remember them, who they were, and the fact that they were murdered because they were Jews. We must continue to bear witness to our history and to those who endured the atrocities of the Holocaust. Your being here tonight does just that. Thank you."
Thank you so much for all being here for this commemoration of heart and remembrance. We at the Jewish Youth Orchestra have felt very honored to be part of this, and very grateful for my students to be here playing for you. Eufen Pripachik has a special meaning to me in my heart because my own Bubby sang this song, and I tonight remember members of my own family from my mother's and my father's side who perished in the Shoah.
And now I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Judy Chu, who represents the 27th Congressional District. And between her and Senator Portantino, you have never missed an event for us for this event, and we really appreciate it. Congresswoman Judy Chu.
Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you and the Jewish Federation of the Greater San Gabriel Valley and Pomona Valleys for the work you do every year to host the Every Person Has a Name Memorial event. Your leadership and the commitment of everyone involved is essential to ensuring that what happened to the Jewish population and others in Europe during the Holocaust can never happen again. That is why today's memorial means so much, because by remembering the names and reading them aloud, we ensure that history is not forgotten. And more importantly, we ensure these lives are not forgotten, not just as numbers, but as individuals who lived, learned, and loved, and were killed because of someone else's hate. And by remembering what happened, we can teach others to understand how it happened. We need to remember the way propaganda was used to inspire modern day pogroms, ghettoization, and eventually the unthinkable horror of Nazi death camps. The goal was the eradication of the Jewish people, and they almost succeeded with entire Jewish communities, centers of Jewish culture and learning that had existed in Europe for centuries completely erased. But when we remember, we can keep these communities alive. And indeed, today, the Jewish people remain. But sadly, so do those who continue to spread hate. It's been 4 years since the horrific, deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we just marked 2 years since the January 6th violent insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. I was there that day, and I was horrified to watch as terrorists attacked the Capitol and our democracy. But it was even more shocking to see the photos come out and to see what some of those had emblazoned on their chests, slogans like Camp Auschwitz and 6 million weren't enough. And just a few months ago, Ye, or formerly Kanye West, spent weeks spreading hateful Holocaust denial Semitism on Twitter and throughout right-wing media, triggering white supremacists to attack and to drop banners on our LA freeways saying Kanye was right. It's yet another example that this hatred has not vanished and must still be confronted. But it also shows how much has changed, with support for the Jewish community coming from all over the country, from communities of all different backgrounds. That unity gives me hope that we can repair the world. And memorials like today remind us why that hope is so important. Symbolizing this hope, just this week, Governor Josh Shapiro was sworn into office with the Hebrew Bible from the Tree of Life Synagogue's bima there on the day of the attack. He was there to express his solidarity. Thank you again for hosting today's memorial and for all that you do to fight hatred and division. Together, we will never forget.
I'd now like to introduce Vicki Paul, who's representing Supervisor Catherine Barger, who represents LA County's 5th Supervisorial District on her behalf. Vicki?
Good evening. I'm honored to join you in recognition of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Thank you to the Jewish Federation of Pomona and San Gabriel Valleys for hosting this remarkable vigil each year. Your ongoing work to promote tolerance and foster community is both admirable and critically important. Tonight, we come together to commemorate the lives of innocent men, women, and children who perished in the Holocaust. For the next 24 hours, we will pay tribute to their memory. By reading their names, we honor their legacy and renew our vow to never allow history to repeat itself. This tradition pays homage not only to those directly affected by the Holocaust, but also to those who felt the ripple effect generations after. It is more crucial than ever to stand up for our Jewish neighbors. Los Angeles County's most recent hate crime report showed a shocking 25% increase in religious hate crimes, and 3 out of 4 of those were targeted at the Jewish community. We must stand up, speak out, and combat hate in all forms. We are strongest when we encourage and uplift one another. Thank you for the opportunity, Jason, to join you in this meaningful tribute. May each of these names continue to be lovingly remembered.
Thank you, Vicki. I'd now like to introduce Senator Anthony Portantino, who represents California's 25th State Senate District, and as I mentioned, a participant who has not missed thus far. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a dear friend of the Jewish Federation, State Senator Portantino.
Good evening. I want to say thank you to Rabbi Moss and everyone for bringing us out tonight. It's truly special. And by the way, it's not cold. It's warm, right? Because together we're making it warm, right? It's been said that the Holocaust isn't just a tragedy for the Jewish people, it's a failure of humanity. And in 2023, we have to ask that question, are we failing again? As Sylvia mentioned, according to the ADL, there's an unprecedented upswing in anti-Semitism over the past 5 years, with 2021 and 2022 significantly having more incidents than in past years. And as she mentioned, these statistics have been being collected since 1979. That's 44 years ago. We're seeing the worst upswing in anti-Semitism in 44 years. That's staggering. And with celebrities and athletes and even politicians spouting anti-Semitic ideas, both in interviews and on social media, we've got to do better. And we must remember what happened and why we must do better. So thank you again, Rabbi Moss and everyone, for helping us, for guiding us and making us remember. Now, Mother Teresa once said, "They tell me that my efforts are but a drop in the ocean." And I say, isn't the ocean better off for that drop? So tonight, and over the next 25 hours, we're going to do more than read names, and we're going to do more than just put a drop in the ocean. We're saying that Pasadena and the San Gabriel Valley remembers and admonishes all of us to do more and never fail humanity again. And that's what we're doing tonight. So thank you for being out. Thank you, Jason, for letting me participate.
It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Cantor Allison Weiss from Temple Sinai of Glendale. She'll be singing Eli, and the words are not in your program, but I know Cantor Allison will share with you the meaning of the words.
Good evening, everybody. I am honored to have been asked to participate this evening. Every time we have a moment to remember is essential. I'm actually not going to share in speech the meaning of these words because I'll be singing them for you. I hope you take the meaning from this, as it is such a representative song from the Holocaust. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, hachol vehayam, rishru shel hamayim, birak hashamayim, tfilat Adam, hachol vehayam, rishrush shel hamayim, birak hashamayim, tfilat Adam. Adonai, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
I'd now like to introduce Ann Hickenbottom, representing Assemblymember Christopher Holden, who represents California's 41st Assembly District, to say a few words.
Thank you and good evening. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of Assemblymember Holden, who, as you said, represents the 41st District from La Cañada, Flint Ridge, Altoona, Pasadena, on the west to parts of Rancho Cucamonga in the east. It is a true honor to participate in this year's Virgil to commemorate the UN International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Thank you to President Julie Solberg, Executive Director Jason Moss, and the governing board members of the Jewish Federation of the Greater San Gabriel and Pomona Valleys for your tireless efforts to unify the community and combat hate. Thank you, Mayor Gordo, for leading the city of Pasadena and partnering this important commemoration, and of course, Assembly members, colleagues of the Congress, Congresswoman Judy Chu, State Senator Anthony Portantino. We're always moved by reading of the names at this observance, named from the poem by Zelda and translated from the Hebrew. Every person has a name. It brings a sense of wholeness and that we never forget those who lost their lives due to a hatred so deep it led human beings to engage in the most horrific acts against other human beings, their brethren, really. We share a collective responsibility to combat hatred and intolerance and the violence and fear it can provoke. This responsibility entails educating people about the causes, consequences, and dynamics of such crimes, and to strengthen the resilience of people against ideologies of hatred. The rise of anti-Semitism is alarming and makes our observances like this even more critical. We must all stand together to oppose hate and bigotry and all its manifestations against any and all human beings, irrespective of their origins, who they love, their faith, their life circumstances. We are all in this world together. We must remain eternally vigilant. That is the price of freedom. As we recently celebrated the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, I would like to share two quotes of his in particular, so we may remember. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. and injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you very much, and good evening. I'd like to present this certificate of recognition for the continuing effort of the Jewish Federation. Thank you so much for all of you and what you do. We stand beside you. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
Over the course of the last several minutes, we've had a few more dignitaries show up. Pasadena Unified Superintendent Brian McDonald, thank you for being here. And past Mayor Terry Tornick, Pasadena's mayor, thank you so much for being here. I'd now like to introduce Danae Maya, who's the district director for Assemblymember Blanca Rubio, who represents California's 48th Assembly District. So if you wouldn't mind, please come up and say a few words.
Thank you. I know I'm a little short. I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danae Amaya. I am the District Director for the Office of Assemblywoman Blanca Rubio. As many of my colleagues mentioned today, these next 24 hours serve as a moment to remember those that have been horrifically impacted by the Holocaust. In a few moments, you will hear a list of names, and let us remember that each of them have a story, had families, friends, and a whole life ahead of them before this horrific time in history. May we carry their stories with us as we do the work that we have in our future and ensure that history is never repeating itself. I appreciate you letting me be here today and to be in this space with you. Thank you.
As our commemoration ceremony is almost at its conclusion, I'd like to invite up Rabbi John Carrier from Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center to say a few words and lead us in the Mourner's Kaddish, Judaism's traditional memorial prayer. The prayer is located in the program, and if you do not have a program, we can make sure you get one.
As Jason said, before we recite the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, to conclude this ceremony so that we may commence to the more important work of giving voice to every name, I want to pause and thank everyone who's spoken so movingly, so beautifully here this evening. I want to thank the cantor and our youth for moving us with their music. I want to thank our elected officials especially, who stand here tonight to show us once again that they have the integrity and increasingly the bravery to have our backs in trying times. Thank you all. I want to share two brief teachings about this prayer that were given to me by one of my esteemed teachers, Rabbi Ed Feinstein. This is a prayer, the Kaddish Yatom, that's often recited in the house of mourning during a period we call Shiva, where people gather in the homes, mourners, because mourners have the obligation to recite this prayer in honor of their loved ones. And Rabbi Feinstein asked, why do mourners need more obligations? Mourning is hard enough as it is. And he said the sages were actually very wise in decreeing this prayer for house of mourning, because this is a prayer that we strive only to say in the company of 10 people. This tradition of saying Mourner's Kaddish wasn't to give someone who is suffering the pain of loss more work to do. It is an obligation on the community to show up for that person. And as we mourn tonight, we can see that the community has shown up for us. The other teaching that was especially personally meaningful for me, whenever, or for anyone who has contemplated the horror of the Shoah and said, how could a God who is so powerful, so loving, so just, let something like the Shoah happen? And what Rabbi Feinstein taught me was that from the very beginning, God gave humanity two great gifts: guidance toward a right life and free will. And some people have used that free will terribly. He said, but the important thing to remember, John, is that God is not in the business of making people cry. God is in the business of crying with us and teaching us to cry with each other, but more importantly, to stand with each other. This is a prayer that we say standing, and perhaps ironically, it says nothing about death. This is a prayer of lifting up everything that we hold most sacred, as if to say, in our darkest moments, we stand, and we stand together in defiance of that darkness, feeling that, as I believe Representative Chu said, that solidarity. And with that guidance, with that solidarity, we have the strength, and I'll say chutzpah, to look back and to look around and say, never again. And so I will invite all who mourn this evening to please rise as we join together for the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Let's pray together. Yit Gedal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Ba'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudsha b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata d'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shamaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Thank you, and you may be seated.
As was mentioned earlier, this event gets its name from the poem, Everyone Has a Name. Everyone has a name that God gives and one's father and mother give. Everyone has a name that stature and the curve of one's smile give and the weave of one's clothing gives. Everyone has a name that the mountains give and the walls of one city give. Everyone has a name that the stars give and the one's neighbors give. Everyone has a name that one's offenses give and one's longing gives. Everyone has a name that enemies give and love for others gives. Everyone has a name birthday celebrations give and one's work gives. Everyone has a name that the seasons of the year give and our blindness gives. Everyone has a name that the sea gives and one's death gives. In a moment, we'll begin our 24 hours of reading names, picking up actually right where we left off last year. We estimate that over the course of the next 24 hours, our volunteers will read more than 7,000 people's names with the information that we have gotten from Yad Vashem. along with any family members their family lost during the Shoah. In order for us to remember the entirety of all 6 million people who were murdered, we would need to continue reading nonstop for the next 850 days. That's the equivalent of 2 years and 120 days. If you're out and about over the next 24 hours, please stop by and listen as we continue to read names. And please help us spread the word by encouraging others to stop by. Before you leave, I'd like to ask you to please stop by the American Red Cross table to my left. They are here with World War II tracing and documentation services. They are helping people find the history of their families. And it's an incredible resource, and we thank you for being here with us. I'd also encourage you to take a moment before you leave and view the exhibition that Sylvia mentioned. With me here are 6 million accusers, the Eichmann trial in Jerusalem that's on display in the rotunda behind me. The exhibition is on loan from Yad Vashem and was arranged with the help of Sylvia Moskowitz and American Society for Yad Vashem. Thank you for that, Sylvia. And we also want to thank Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center Sisterhood for sponsoring the exhibition. Now, if you're not able to return, we completely understand, but we encourage you to join us live streaming, either on our Facebook page or on Zoom. Again, the fact that we are all here, each one of us in this cold night, is an important statement. Thank you to everyone who participated in tonight's service and the ceremony, and to all of you here tonight. You're helping us keep the memories alive and remembering that everyone has a name. And together, may all of us keep in mind that we hope that their memory and their names forever are a blessing. Thank you so much. We're actually going to begin the name reading right now.